Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Before we get started with Nick Searcy, I want to tell you guys about a project that's near and dear to my heart, the Free State Project. If you go to fsp.org/join, you can learn more about the Free State Project. What's the Free State Project? The Free State Project is a movement of people who are committed to living the principles of liberty, who've all agreed to move to a state where they can have an effect on the political culture and create their own subculture, and that state was New Hampshire. Already 4,000 people have moved. Whatever city you find in New Hampshire, you're going to find people who think like you, who act like you, God help us, and are living the values. You don't have to be that annoying, weird person in your community who is advocating for liberty. You could be the one who is the normal one, and everyone else is the crazy person. Why New Hampshire? Small population, live free or die culture. They've got an active jury outreach movement. Civil disobedience is practiced regularly. Public smoking of marijuana, open carry litter pickups. They film police encounters. They do detour traffic prior to police checkpoints to starve the state. It's a tax-deductible, non-profit charity. It's also a really safe place. They've got constitutional carry, castle doctrine, gun clubs, no knife laws. It's the lowest property crime state in America, lowest homicide rate in America. If you don't know what those terms are, look them up, and then you're going to be moving to New Hampshire. I wish I could. If you go to fsp.org/join, you can learn more about this amazing project, which is putting the principles you believe in into practice. You know they have 400 state representatives and they only make $100 a year? That's a moderate position I can get behind. What else do they have that's great about New Hampshire? Let's see what here. 20,000 people have pledged to move. They have, and that's the thing, in every city, they've got all these communities for you. Gun clubs. New Hampshire's Constitution expressly protects citizens' rights to revolution. No state sales tax, no state income tax, no tax on machinery, equipment, or inventory, no capital gains tax, no death tax, no helmet law, no seatbelt law, no requirement to buy car insurance. By far the best state for cryptocurrency, but number one state for financial literacy, and second lowest unemployment, so you're going to be able to get a job. If you go to fsp.org/join, you'll learn more about it. And now, here's Nick Searcy. Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. I am kind of giddy to have our guest here. It's Nick Searcy, and I asked Nick how you wanted to be introduced. You said international film and TV star.
Television star.
Television.
Yeah, I like saying the whole word television.
Your resume is insane. You've been in literally 100 productions.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. Lots of, I call it small parts and big things and big parts and small things. That's what I've done.
But I mean, do you have like the best agent on earth or something?
No, I have the worst. I get it all myself.
Is that true?
Well, lately, but
I'm sure a lot of it's networking and being good to work with.
Sure, it is that, and I'm kidding about my agent Joe. I'm just kidding. No, he's great, and we've been very fortunate. It's I've been able to not have a day job for about 30 years. So that's you win. That's it.
It's good work if you can get it. I know what that's like. I'm in my underwear in the morning. Yeah. So here's how I came upon your name. I want to get the exact quote. I was on Twitter. Mm-hmm. This is April 2018. And someone who goes by the name The Comedian says to you, because you had a photo of your son at graduation with your wife.
Right.
Great picture, happy family.
Yeah.
What a great moment.
Right.
He goes to you, so you adopted a black kid, capital B, capital K. I don't know why they're capitalized. Yeah. So you could use him as a prop in your self-righteous social media virtue signaling. and they say there's no heroes anymore, some context to what event is being celebrated would reduce or whatever. And you just wrote back, this might be one of my favorite tweets of all time. Yes, that's exactly why I did it. And the 18 years of loving him and going to his ball games and feeding him and helping him with his homework was, and this is all in caps, all worth it just for this day on Twitter when I owned your stupid ass.
Yeah, my wife says I have too much fun on Twitter.
There's no such thing. That's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
But I'm an anarchist, so I've got mixed feelings about the military. However, I'm going to say this phrase non-ironically. Thank you for your service, because when you adopt a child, or anyone adopts a child, you're saving a life. Mm-hmm. Like, but for you, your son, what's your son's name? Omar, he could have been lost.
Right.
And I've seen you talk about this a lot on Twitter. It is the foster system is troubled, to say the least.
Yeah.
So whenever I see people who have put their money where their mouth is, taken a kid into their home, raised him, put a roof over his shoulder, made a man out of him, made a woman out of him, that's to me is real heroism.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. It's been a great service to ourselves too. I mean, it's Omar's been such a blessing to us and such a joy in our lives. The whole experience has been great. It is very frustrating dealing with the foster care system. Yeah. It's very difficult to get children out of it. I don't think the system is designed for adoption. It's designed to keep the kids in the system so that the system grows. And there's no real, single villain in that. That's just the way bureaucracies operate.
Yeah.
They tend to self-perpetuate. And that's what happens a lot of times with these kids. By the time they're ready to be adopted, by the time the system frees them up, they're 9, 10, 11 years old. They've been bounced around from home to home, and they're very hard to place.
It's like I'm going to use. I'm sorry to use this metaphor, but in a sense, it's like those older dogs at the kennel, right? Like everyone wants the puppy, you want the newborn.
That's right.
And who wants a 10-year-old kid who's been screwed up through no fault of his own? If you take any human being, you bounce them around from house to house with no stability at age 9 or 10, that's not going to cause the kid to have problems.
Yes,
of course it will.
Yeah.
And the idea also, that kid, when he gets to new home, he's not going to feel safe.
Right. And he won't trust you. He won't believe that you love him.
And you can't blame him.
Right.
And it's really, really tragic. So when I see people, I remember during the 2012 campaign when they were like making fun of Michelle Bachmann. Mm-hmm. And she's a bit of a loon, and that's fine, whatever. Mm-hmm. She adopted like 20 kids. Yeah. She has money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you saved 20 lives? Let's suppose she screwed up 2. She's still got 18 in the you know what I mean?
That's right.
Or when we made fun of Kim Kardashian visiting the White House, and it's like, she got a woman out of jail. Have you seen that footage of her hugging her family, how hysterical they were with delight? They thought she was done?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How does it make you feel when these college kids just flippantly call you a racist? So you laugh about it.
Yeah, I do. It's kind of funny because, and that's kind of why I do it. Is like I want to show how ridiculous that is. Because basically the premise they're coming from is that anyone who disagrees with me is a racist, and I just show them, look, I disagree with you, and I'm obviously not a racist. This is my family. Now what?
Right.
Now let's talk about something or not.
But it's not even I'm not a racist. It's like, what have you done to help black people? I've saved one.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that's kind of why I do it. That's why I come back at them. They're, you're using your kid as a shield. He's just a prop. I go, yeah, ridiculous. They're easy to get. Go get one. Go get yourself a prop. It's no big deal. It doesn't cost anything.
No headaches. Having a 14-year-old teenage boy or whatever in your house is a dream. There's never any downside.
Oh, no. I mean, we were very fortunate with Omar in that we were qualified as foster parents with the intention to adopt. So Omar came to live with us when he was a baby. We got him when he was like 15 months old. And it took 3 years to get him out of that system and get him adopted. But during that whole time, he was with us. So we're the parents that he knows. He's lived with us his whole life.
My friend, my very good friend Steffi, her sister's adopted. She's black as well. She's white. Steph and her family. It's always fun for them to go to the mall because people kind of look and they're a little confused. I'm sure it must be fun for you guys as well. Especially is it weird? Is it different in the South than the North? Because I know you said you were living in New York for a while.
Certainly it is. Yeah. When we first adopted Omar, we were living in Wilmington, North Carolina, and our daughter was 11 or 12. So we would be going to the mall with me and my wife and my 11-year-old white daughter pushing a baby carriage with Omar in it, and people would go, "Okay, what happened here?" We literally would have people come up to us and go, "How did this happen?"
Right.
But yeah, and it wasn't so much that it was, racist. It was just such an uncommon occurrence, much less common in the South than you would have in, when we moved to L.A. So it wasn't such a big deal when we got to Los Angeles.
So I looked at the resume. There's so many people you've worked with that I'm curious about. Don Johnson. Yeah. Is he as much of a hunk in real life as he is on TV?
It's funny. I did one episode of that show, and I think I saw him for about 2 hours. I mean, the rest of the time I'm like off doing my storyline. I'm breaking out of prison or whatever I'm doing, and then, I see him. Hey, Don, how are you? He shoots me. That's it. I didn't really get to spend that much time with him.
I put out a question on Twitter not that long ago. I said, is there anyone as universally beloved in America as Dolly Parton? Right? Because I've never met anyone who doesn't like her, and I think the vast majority of people adore her. Some people threw out Betty White.
Yeah.
And which is
who
not
I've
a bad
worked
answer.
with.
I gotta get on Hot in Cleveland. Johnny Cash is another one. I'm like, okay, everyone loves him. Then there was a name that threw out that I really disagree with, who you've worked with, which is Tom Hanks. I hate him.
Oh, really?
Is he a cool guy?
Do you hate his work?
No, I think I find him smarmy.
Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, I like Tom. I mean, I've worked with him more than once, and he's always been very gracious to me and nice. And I mean, I don't have any personal complaints about him.
He's no Dolly Parton. No. I think he would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got an edge to him.
Yeah,
and I think that's what makes him funny. I think that's where a lot of his humor comes from. But we had when we're doing Castaway, we were all talking about. We were sitting around, three of us actors, Vivica Davis and I, and Tom was in the room, and we said we were making jokes about how our part should have been bigger, and I said something like, "Yeah, and I could have played that guy who gets, thrown on the island." And Tom goes, "Yeah, except there was this big name named Tom Hanks who got the part."
Okay,
he jokes about it. He's a nice guy.
What percent of actors off stage, like behind the scenes, are actually nice guys?
I would say I probably only about 10% of the people that I've ever worked with are bad guys.
Oh, that's great.
Are people that are unbearable or whatever. Most of the people are that I've worked with have been very gracious and there for the work and serious and professional.
One of the things that you have to do as an actor is have empathy, right? That's the basis of your role. You got to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about just circling back with adoption, right? Mm-hmm. When I have friends who are adopted, and growing up, kids are stupid. Right, we're kids. I remember when I was a kid, I wasn't adopted, but my family would start talking Ukrainian, and I thought they're talking about getting rid of me because why else? In my 5-year-old brain, what other possible reason are they speaking language?
Keeping a secret from
me, right? Yeah. So how do you work to make sure you teach your son you're not going back to the store, so to speak? Because every adopted kid has that fear, right? Like, what am I return to sender?
Oh wow. Well, I mean, the really unique thing about our situation is that Omar has known his birth family from the beginning.
Okay.
He has brothers and sisters that he's known. He's visited with his mother. I mean, part of the arrangement that we made with them is that we would stay in touch with them. So he's never had that thing about, who am I? Where do I come from? He's always known. So in that respect, he was being explained to all along his whole life, you are with us because you couldn't live with your birth family. They love you, but they just couldn't take care of you, and that's why we're here, and that's why you're with us. So I think in Omar's situation, he just he knew from the beginning, so it wasn't so much of a problem.
Let's talk about this movie, Gosnell, which you directed. Mm-hmm. Tell us what that movie's about, because it's intense.
It's a true story about a doctor in Philadelphia named Kermit Gosnell who was convicted in 2013 of murdering babies after they were born, among other things. He had developed a technique of abortion that was illegal, and he would induce birth, and then after the baby was born, he would take a pair of scissors and cut the spinal cord. So it was something that was done over and over and over again for a number of years. He even taught his staff to do it when he wasn't there. A number of his staff went to jail for doing this, and it wasn't detected because they didn't inspect his clinic for so many years.
Were the women coming in there intentionally to get abortions, or was he doing this against their will?
No, they were there for abortions, yeah. But his technique of doing it increased his volume. In other words, it was quicker than sort of doing it the legal way, which is to terminate the pregnancy inside while the baby's still inside the womb and then take it out. He just induced birth, basically gave them these drugs that would cause them to give birth and then terminate the baby.
Why is one legal and the other one not?
Well, that's part of what the movie's about. In the movie, there's a trial, and during the trial, one of the witnesses is an abortionist who operates within the parameters of the law, and we take Gosnell's defense attorney, played by me, takes her through all the steps that she goes through to terminate a pregnancy, and at the end of it, he says, "I don't really see the difference."
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of the film, is like, where do you draw the line, and why is the line drawn there and not somewhere else?
I considered myself pro-choice until very recently, because when I saw the governor of Virginia and those laws that were passed in Virginia and New York, and the blitheness people were talking about viable kids being killed, I was like, okay, I can't. If I say I'm pro-choice, it's going to sound like I'm fine with this, and I'm not, because the argument used to be that this is tragic. It has to be rare. Keep it safe, legal, and rare. And it's what a shame, right? And that seems to have fallen away. It does not seem to be like how like end of life, right? Like pulling the plug. The big argument the pro-life people made for a long time is it's going to go very quickly from this is a horrible tragedy to like, let's just change the channel.
Right.
And and seeing people like Michelle Wolf on her canceled show on Netflix having a celebration of abortion.
That shout your abortion thing.
Yeah. And I get how on one point it's like, okay, we could talk about it in a second, that we shouldn't be ashamed if you had one. That's very different from just talking about, we're going to have the birth and then blah, blah, blah. And how did that make you feel as a pro-life person?
Well, when I first read the script of Gosnell, I probably consider myself pro-choice.
Okay.
I mean, because while I do think it's a human life at the moment of conception, I think there should be some sort of, I can see the argument for terminating a pregnancy in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks, when it isn't formed. I can see the argument. I may not agree with it, but I can at least understand it. And I thought, okay, when I read Gosnell, I thought we can find some common ground here.
Yeah.
These babies that are being terminated in the third trimester when he's inducing birth and then killing the baby. I mean, surely we can all agree that is going too far. And what's happened with what's passed in New York State and what the governor of Virginia said is like, you realize, no, pro-choice doesn't mean what I thought it meant. If we're going to talk about terminating 8-month-old babies 4 weeks before they're born, then that's a very different discussion. I can't see the common ground there.
Yeah, I don't understand the argument that simply because a viable baby is in a womb, there's just skin separating the kid from the outside world, that this isn't a life. It's like if I'm hiding under some blankets, am I not a human being anymore? Or even if I'm hiding inside a carcass or something. But right. I mean, if you want to go absurd, but it's so absurd, I don't understand.
I know. And that's the thing that's hard to get past, because they have to pretend that it's not.
Right.
They have to believe that it is not a life in order to believe what they believe. And I don't see how you can believe that. I don't see how you can justify that to yourself.
And I think a lot of it is, being from New York all my life, a lot of it is cultural, right? So the idea has been put forward very effectively for decades that to be pro-life, you have to be a religious nut. Not just religious, but a religious nut.
Right.
And every decent person is pro-choice, and it's feminism and celebrating women's right to choose. And
anti-woman,
and all this, right. And it's just like, and the worst of this, and I hit her really hard on Twitter, was Kristen Gillibrand, who, one's right to choose celebrate, one's right to choose, and then she was making it harder for people to get their pain medication because, blah, blah, the opioid crisis. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So you can't come between a woman and her doctor when it comes to a third party, a baby. But when it comes to someone in pain, they need to be going to the doctor more frequently because, when someone's in pain, that's when it's really easy to do things and get in the car and go play. It was just the shamelessness and the hypocrisy was obscene to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got, and I know you get asked this question a lot, have you gotten pushback because of your outspoken politics? Because the argument is anyone who's got any views in Hollywood, they try to ruin you.
Well, I mean, not to my face. Nobody's ever said it to my face. And the way, I'm sure there has been some, is the short answer. I don't know how much, and I don't know when it occurs, but I'm sure there has been some. I haven't worked as much in the last year, 2 years as I used to. I don't know if that's a product of me getting older or, I'm not as good anymore or whatever, but it could have something to do with that. But, they use euphemisms. They don't say we're not hiring Nick because of his politics. They'll call my agent and go, yeah, we just don't see the part that way, or something generic like that. But interesting, I had an exchange on Twitter. I just did a job in a movie miniseries called The Hot Zone. And it's coming out in May on Nat Geo, and of course, some little 125 follower loser sort of started tweeting at all the people that I'd worked with, like Guillermo del Toro and one of the producers of The Hot Zone, going, "Do you know how hateful Nick Searcy is? Look at his hateful right-wing views." And of course, I put up a picture of my whole family and go, "Tell my whole family how hateful and racist they are," or whatever. But the one of the producers of The Hot Zone answered him and said, we cast Nick because of his audition tape. We thought he was the best one for the role. And his views came up while he was on set. But by then we were watching a very nuanced and a very well-developed character. And for once, the work superseded the politics. That was what she said. And it's like, okay, that's a very revealing tweet. For once, you were able to forgive the man.
But it's also funny that this kid is just tweeting at Benicio. This happened to me. I made some joke on Red Eye. This is the old Fox talk show about football players, getting hit in the head and having brain damage. It's a very dark humor.
Yeah.
And someone, college kid was like yelling at me, like, you should make jokes about this. And I didn't have the line at the time, but Kurt Schlichter, who I'm sure you follow, is one of my absolute favorites.
Kurt's hilarious.
Yeah, I love him. He's like, hey, I got an idea. How about I do what I want, and you cry some more, right?
Right.
And he's like, you keep this up, I'm going to make sure, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what are you going to do? Right. And he's like, I got an ace up my sleeve. And I'm like, I'm curious. I'm like, all right, what are you going to do? So he tweets at Fox News. Hey, at Fox News, did you know he made this joke? And I'm like, first of all, who do you think is reading this at Fox News Twitter? You think it's like Roger Ailes, number one. Yeah. Number two is I made the joke on Fox News.
Right.
What do you they could have edited it out. What are you talking? It was amazing. But the thing about Twitter is it gives people, and like democracy in general, it gives people like who are not bright. Yeah. There's no mind there.
Right.
The illusion that, your voice is going to be heard and it's going to matter. And Benicio del Toro is going to look at this. What?
Guillermo.
Oh, Guillermo. Sorry. Guillermo del Toro is going to look at this. What? Yeah. Nick?
Yeah. And that's what I keep telling these people. It's like, look, losers, I actually know these people personally. It's like,
right.
But they've been doing it for years. They were writing the people at Justified going, do you know what a hateful redneck you have on your show?
It's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they actually know me.
Yeah.
They know who I am.
Yeah. So you're right of center. You're Republican. But among the Democrats running for president, who do you like?
Well, I'm kind of fond of Kamala, how do you say her name?
Kamala, I think.
Kamala Harris. And the reason is not because of any of the policies that she has, but because I remember the wrestler, the Great Kamala. And the Great Kamala
whose last name was Harris in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And so whenever I think of her, I think of the Great Kamala.
And he lost his legs.
He did. It's very sad. I saw some pictures of him at an independent show about 2 or 3 years ago, and before he lost his legs, and very sad. But yeah, I'm for the Great Kamala.
Spring is here. God bless. Summer's around the corner. You know what that means? it's time to put on some fun Heshy socks. HESHI socks.com. If you go to heshysocks.com and use welcome30 as your promo code, you get 30% off. Dear readers, you know I love my Heshy socks. They're my house socks. Why are they great? Because they're thick, cushioned all over, but they're also antimicrobial, so the socks don't smell. If you go to heshysocks.com, HESHI socks.com, promo code welcome30, you can look at their huge line of socks. They've got the fancy ones. You want to wear them to work. You got the ones you could dress down with. They've got the ankle socks. They've got the basic socks. If you're basic, why are you listening to my show? Let's get out of here. This is not for you. But they have all sorts of socks that will work at the gym, at the office, in bed, if you're getting intimate with a loved one or someone you loathe. The socks will love you back. If you go to heshysocks.com, HESHI socks.com, and use promo code welcome30, you're going to be telling me, thank you, Michael Malice. Now let's get back to it. Let's talk about this new movie you're working on.
Yeah.
Best of Enemies.
Yes.
What's that about?
It premiered April 5th, and it's a true story about integrating the public school system in Durham, North Carolina in 1971.
Okay.
And it stars Taraji Henson and Sam Rockwell.
Oh, what's she like in person?
Really, really fun, just like very loud and boisterous and just hilarious. We had a really good time working with her. And but most of my stuff was with Sam.
Okay.
And Sam is just the salt of the earth, just the greatest guy.
What's your character in that movie?
I play the Garland Keith is his name, and I'm the president of the White Citizens Council in Durham.
White citizen. Have you? I had to interview Jared Taylor for my book. He's like the big head racist.
Yeah.
And he talks about white people.
Yeah.
White privilege.
Yeah. Yeah.
It must be. Here's the thing. It must be fun playing the villain.
It is, because you can be as evil as you want with no consequences because we're all just pretending here.
Yeah.
But it is fun. And the funny I had a conversation with Omar when the part came up. I said, he was 17 at the time. I said, buddy, I got offered this part. I'm going to, it's a true story, but I'm going to be playing, a pretty big racist. And Omar goes, that's all right, Dad. You might as well take the money. Somebody's got to play those crackers.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your cut, son. Go to the movies.
Yeah. But no, it's a really powerful film, and it also, I don't want to give the whole storyline away, but it's basically about at that time they organized what was called a chariot, which is like 12 people from the community come together and vote on whether or not they're going to integrate the schools or not, and it's basically six black people and 6 white people.
Oh, wow.
And the leader of the white people was literally the president of the Klan in Durham. And the leader of the black people was Taraji, this Ann Atwater, who was he was a black activist who had been very active in the community for a number of years. So these two people were like at each other's throats at the beginning of the film. So.
It's amazing that in 71, the Klan is still a viable force. That's not that long ago.
No, it's not. And really interesting to me is I grew up in North Carolina, but I lived in the western part of the state near Asheville. When this was going on, I remember we had some students transfer to our school, black students from that region, because racial tensions were so high. So that these kids' families decided they wanted to get them out of there for a while. And so they came to school with us for about 2 years, 71, 72, while this was all going on. And I didn't know that's why at the time.
Sure.
But now, looking back on it, I go, oh, okay, that's why they were there.
So what was it like? Were there a lot of talk behind their backs? Like, what was the vibe like?
Not so much where I grew up, because we were never segregated in the mountains because there were so few black people that actually lived there at that time that we only had there weren't enough black people in the community to segregate the schools in Western North Carolina. So, we had maybe 4, maybe 5. I think I had one black African American student in my graduating class. So it just wasn't a thing. It wasn't that much tension about it, I'm sure that there were things that were going on, but it wasn't. racial tensions in our community weren't high because it was so homogenous in a way.
What do you think about how the South is portrayed in our popular culture?
Well, I think that there's a tendency to always focus on the negative aspects of Southern culture. I think that's as much a consequence of how you create a drama. You have to have an antagonist.
Yes.
You have to have tension created in order to have a story, and that's an easy. That's an easy fix. That's an easy solution to that. I'm not so sure. There certainly is racism, has been in the South. There's also been racism in Boston and the North and everywhere. So I think the most egregious aspect of it is that it makes it seem like it's only in the South that people were like this. They're like that everywhere.
Yeah, there were sundown towns in the North where, like, if you were black, you were not allowed to be in this town after sundown. There were the big riots in like 1917 in St. Louis were white people rioting and burning down the black district, and that's all been forgotten now.
Right.
So it's just amazing for me to have these white leftists talk about how the South are the bad guys and we're the good guys who fought racism. It's like, no, a lot of Southern whites fought racism and a lot of Northern whites made sure, not my neighborhood. Right. And just like today, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Not in my gated community.
Right. What kind of... I mean, you've done so much. What kind of roles do you... It's a stupid question, but it's just like, you have enough data that you have the bell curve of what kind of roles you like and what kind of roles you don't. Like, at this point, are you turning down stuff because it's just, like, not interesting? Is there stuff you're pursuing that...
Well, I don't turn down stuff. Once in a while I'll turn down something because it's not interesting. But I tend to look... I like playing the bad guy. I mean, I've played a lot of villains. They are more fun.
It's so fun.
But Justified was fun, too. I mean, I kind of look for roles that have a certain personality and a certain sense of humor. This role in the Hot Zone, I'm really kind of excited about. I haven't seen any of it, so I don't know if I don't know if I'm good in it or not. But it was an interesting role. It's sort of, I usually play the kind of bureaucrat or the policeman or the that kind of thing. This guy's like a janitor at the place where they take care of monkeys. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you actually work with monkeys?
CGI monkeys.
Oh, okay, because you don't want to work with real ones. They're no joke.
No, they're not.
They bite and they're nasty.
Yeah, we only worked with fake monkey corpses and then like pretending like I'm feeding a live monkey who's actually not there. They're going to put him in later.
Do you still get starstruck ever?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I worked with Julianne Margulies a lot in this Hot Zone. And, yeah, at first it's like, wow, I've just seen her so many times. And, yeah, I do get starstruck. But I tell you, the biggest starstruck I was this morning because I went down to visit my WWE friend, Matt Hardy. And as I'm leaving, I'm going up the stairs, Daniel Bryan walked by.
I don't know who that is.
Daniel Bryan's like right now the champion. Yes, that guy. I was just like, I just couldn't even think of anything to say. I wanted to introduce myself. I just couldn't do it.
Was he friendly?
He was like, hi, yeah. He said hello, and I was like, I'm a friend of, good to see you. I just couldn't figure out anything. So I get starstruck by those guys.
But me working with Betty White, you weren't like, oh my gosh, it's Betty White?
Oh, well, Betty, yeah, I was, of course, a little bit, but she's such a wonderful person. I mean, one of my favorite things is like I had a gag on Hot in Cleveland, and I cracked Betty up. Betty laughed really hard at something I did, and honestly, not like acting. I really got her, and that was just like, oh hell, I made Betty White laugh.
She is one of the great comedic actresses of all time. Yeah. And when she was working on the Golden Girls and telling these St. Olaf stories, which were this completely surreal, insane things, the rest of the cast was fighting to keep a straight face because she delivered it so straight, and she's talking such nonsense. Yeah. And they didn't know what to do. This was a problem. I mean, and she's been around since, what, the 30s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is something to sort of be on a show with Betty White, because part of the reason I got into acting was that it's weird, but I was about 11, 12 years old watching the Mary Tyler Moore Show and going, those people look like they're having a lot of fun. Yeah. I want to do that. And, Betty White's on that show.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then,
Yeah, that's right. So,
50 years later, there I am working with her.
Yes,
Crazy.
as what, Sue Ellen Nivens.
Yeah.
Sue Ann Nivens, whatever her name is. Yeah, the pervert.
Yeah.
I mean, do you still enjoy doing it? I mean, what's the most annoying thing about being an actor?
The most annoying thing is getting the job. It's just what the process you have to go through, and even now I don't audition that much anymore. So my agent will call me up and go, "Well, they're thinking about you for this, but they've got to go through, make sure that Tommy Lee Jones doesn't want to do it, or who, so they got to go through that list, to get down to me."
Wait, okay. Who are the A-list versions of Nick Searcy?
Right.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
Who else?
Billy Bob. Who else have I heard? Oh gosh, Will Patton. I mean, Tom Berenger. I don't know. They just go. Have to go through that list, and sometimes they don't even tell. Gerald McCraney.
Wait, who's the guy from Evening Shade?
Is that Gerald McCraney?
Is that him?
I think
so.
so.
Yeah, Delta Burke's husband.
Yeah,
exactly.
all the time. It's like, Gerald's going to do it.
Are you friendly with all these people?
I've met Gerald. I've worked with him once. Yeah, most of them. I worked with Tommy Lee once, although I'm not a friend of his. But
ooh, what does that mean?
He was sort of nasty to me.
Oh. Well, what's the nasty?
But that was The Fugitive. That
okay.
was like the second thing I'd ever done in my life.
Without naming names, can you tell me one of those Hollywood stories? You must have a ton of stories, because the things you see on sets is just like insane. So give me your favorite one where it's like, you would not, if this were in a movie, no one would believe it.
Well, I already said his name. We were doing The Fugitive.
Perfect.
And, we had this, there was a big train wreck scene. I'm just the sheriff in the train wreck in The Fugitive, if you see it. But we had this meeting beforehand because it was such a big scene, and Tommy Lee basically rewrote his whole part.
Oh.
And, I think in some ways that's how he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, because he really made that part really special and really, suited it to him. So we were rehearsing, we did a read-through, and the director was there, and we read through the part, and Tommy Lee says to me, he says, I think you're doing it wrong. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I think you should play it like much more illiterate than you're playing it. You should be like barely able to read. You should really be a stupid redneck. And I said, well, I don't really see the character that way. I think he's more like a politician who doesn't know what he's doing. I think he's probably well-spoken, but he's just kind of a boob.
Yeah.
And I think it's more interesting that way. And Tommy Lee says, well, I don't. And I kind of looked at the director, and the director goes, well, it's an interesting take on it, Nick.
It's not interesting. That character he's proposing is a stock character that's been done a billion times.
Right. I kind of stuck up for myself because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. I mean, I was only like 32 at the time, and this is like my third movie. And I sort of said, well, I don't really feel comfortable playing that way, and I don't want to. Well, after that, Tommy Lee just hated my guts. It's like when we shot the scene, it was really cold that night. He invited everybody else into his trailer except me. He had this big trailer with like a hot tub in it. So all the other actors sitting around. I'm like, I'll just sit in my little honey wagon here. And,
oh, my God.
And then when we were actually doing the scene, we started improvising, and I had this line. It's in the movie. I have this line, we're shutting it down, boys. Wyatt Earp's here to mop up for us. And Tommy Lee comes back at me, improvised. He comes back and goes, oh, that's very funny. I like that. And I go, well, I'm glad you like it. And he said, you little son of a bitch. And I was like, is he acting?
Right.
Or does he really hate me? And then, we just moved on. But he never really spoke to me ever again after that time when I sort of said, no, I don't want to play the part that way.
I was in L.A. over the weekend, and I was talking to some actor friends of mine. And the question I have is, how do you perform a role when the written dialogue is terrible? Because as an actor, you want to be realistic and make it and knowing no person's going to talk like this, right? So it's kind of incongruous.
Yeah, I mean, well, in different situations, I mean, a lot of times that stuff is massageable. If you have a valid argument, you can go to them and go, I think this would be better. if you say it like this, or sometimes you just sort of say it the way you want.
Okay.
And then let them say, no, that's not what it says. Or sometimes they just say, I like that better.
Okay.
So a lot of times it is sort of workable. I mean, especially on Justified, the writers wound up just sort of sending somebody to the set with us because Timothy and I and Walt Goggins, we would always be sort of like fiddling with the dialogue, just sort of making it a little bit more personal, a little bit more colloquial. So they came and just participated in that process, and I think that's why that show ended up being so good, is that they did let us work the dialogue.
I think it's different in a drama, I would guess, than in a comedy. Because when the jokes aren't funny, what do? There's no place to go.
No, that's absolutely true. And jokes are so much about timing and wording, and that's much different.
And that writer's going to be protective of his, baby. And it's like, well, your baby, this is the case where I'm not pro-life because this baby should be put down.
Right. And when I've done a sitcom and when you're working on half-hour comedies like that, it's writing, there's 18 writers.
Yeah. And
they're all in there kind of like protecting their joke or whatever, and saying, that's not the way I wrote it. It's funnier if you say it the way I wrote it. And sometimes they're right. You know? And so, but that's a much different process than a movie,
You do have too much fun on Twitter. How did you get onto Twitter to begin with? You're a 60. What's funny? It's like what no one seems to have an answer for. I've never heard anyone is how the hell the person who knows social media better than anyone on earth, the president, he's like 75. Like at 75, I would watch Judge Judy sometimes, and I've seen this 3 times. I'm not exaggerating. She would turn to Bird, the bailiff, and be like, "What's PayPal?"
Right.
She goes, I don't use the computer. What happened to you take a check and you send a check? And it's like, PayPal is what happened.
Right.
That's what happened, Judy. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that, people who are older, you're killing it on Twitter. And it's like, shouldn't you? What are you, 14? Right. And especially when you're not exactly being sophisticated. You're
no.
Hey, loser, I'm sitting here drinking my expensive wine.
Right. They're all like, why don't you act your age? An old man like you shouldn't be doing this. And I'm writing back and go, well, you're obviously too damn stupid to ever get this old. So, I just try to give it back. It's almost like being an improv class.
Okay.
Me. You're just sort of like trying to crack on people. They come at me. All right, I'll go back at you. We'll see where this goes.
But they're often not coming at it from a jovial point of view.
No, that's what's the most fun. That's what's the Andy Kaufman aspect of it, is that they think I'm serious.
Right.
And so they're taking it all so seriously, and I'm just making jokes.
Right.
They'll go, where can I buy your... they'll make fun of me about, my box of cigars. I have some cigars in my life. Where can I buy a box of your cigars, Mr. Big Star? And I'll write them back and go, well, your mom bought one. Maybe ask her when she sobers up. I'm just like making a joke here, guys.
Wait, so the question I have, what's the look on when you are doing this? Are you serious? Are you cracking yourself up? What's the affect?
Most of the time I'm laughing while I'm doing it, because especially if I think of something that I think is particularly vile, or just sort of a really bad insult, I'm dying laughing.
The question I always have, if I met the president, the one thing I would ask him, and I want to know what your answer would be if you met him, if what you would guess is, when you're dropping these tweets, are you like on the toilet, just like matter of fact? Are you cracking yourself up? Or you're like, hey, Ivanka, get in here. She's like, Dad, look, it's a good one. Trail.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think his expression is when do you think he's cracking himself up?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think that
he's not very laughy, though, in general.
No, and I think that's the thing about Trump that's most interesting to me, is that there's not really much artifice with him. Right. It's not like he doesn't do things for effect, it seems like. He just sort of responds honestly. It's like, and that's what I take from his tweets, is like, he's honestly just making fun of people he wants to make fun of, or that's his reaction. It's not like he's not crafting some response. He's just sort of blah. That's what I said.
How has your political ideology changed over time? Have you always been right of center?
I would say pretty much. I was kind of apolitical, probably until I was 30 or so, when my daughter was born, and that's when I started really kind of thinking about politics more seriously. Up until that point, I was just like living in New York City, acting, trying to get my acting career started. And
Right.
that was all I was focused on. But after my daughter was born and we were like, okay, we're going to actually have to live in the world realistically now. That's when I started paying attention to the politics.
So I think one of the big arguments is, has the left gotten crazier over time, or is their mass just dropping? What's your take on that?
I think they've always been crazy. I think that the reason they're so crazy now is that even when Bush was president, they were just as vociferous against Reagan. They were just as vociferous against Bush. They said the most horrible things same things they're saying about Trump. Bush is a racist, he's a murderer, all that stuff. I remember going through that, and I was in Hollywood then. They were just as bad then. What's different about Trump is that Trump won't behave graciously back towards them.
He hits back, yeah.
Yeah. Bush was always like, I'm going to be above this. So they would just hit him and hit him and hit him, and he would never say anything. They can't even, make a poke at Trump, and he's on him like that. He just goes right back at him so quick, and that drives him insane.
The fact that the president is tweeting about Meryl Streep is something Hollywood doesn't know what to do with.
No, it's crazy. It is. And they exactly right. They don't know how to take it when there's a guy there that's not willing to take their crap anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I mean, they've been throwing this same stuff they throw at me, that I'm a racist because I disagree with them. They've been throwing that at every conservative, every Republican for decades, and now suddenly they're getting it thrown back at them, and they can't handle it.
What's amazing is I remember, even though I was very young, and you were older than me, so you remember this, when Reagan was sworn in, he was going to bring us nuclear war.
Yeah.
And there were lots of songs, those new wave songs that the mushroom cloud iconography and all that thing. It's a given. Land of Confusion by Genesis. There's a video that he's pressing the button because he's senile in his sleep and it's nuclear war. Right. And instead we have the biggest peacetime victory of all time. Yeah. And the collapse of the Soviet Union, the liberation of half the world. And I remember during the campaign, Trump is like, he's going to bring us nuclear war. This guy's going to get angry and press the nuclear button, even though, he's never been angry and punched somebody, which I think would be easier to do than nuke somebody.
Right.
And what's sick to me is he actually only gets accolades when he's bombing people.
Right.
So on the one hand, they're scared of him getting us nuclear war, but then when he's hitting Syria or any of these other countries, like, oh yeah, he's finally presidential.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the left is really, the opposite of everything they say is what they are. I mean, this whole idea of he's the guy that's going to get us into a war. No, you are the guys that get us into wars. This is the guy who wants to negotiate with North Korea. He wants to negotiate with Russia, treat them more like a friend than an enemy. And that, they can't stand that. And they're the opposite of what they claim to be.
There was someone on Twitter, it may have been the guy from the Young Turks, I don't remember who, but they were making the point that oh my gosh, after he won the election, but before he was sworn in, he was, sending out feelers to Russia. And I'm like, so collusion is diplomacy you don't approve of? Is it what elected president-elect wouldn't be getting his ducks in a row and being like, hey, we're going to have to work together. Right. Let's open communications.
Yeah, he's being responsible.
Right. This is the one time where Trump is being a diplomat and presidential, and you guys are acting like he's a lunatic.
Yeah. No, it's very telling.
What is your reaction when you're around? How bad is it? So on Twitter, right? They're constantly pontificating, just knee-jerk Trump, Republicans, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Cher, Barbara Streisand, Kathy Griffin, that whole lot.
Most of them have blocked me,
Give me one. Who are some of them have blocked?
Cher blocked me. Rosie blocked me. Roseanne Barr blocked me a long time ago. But
she follows me.
Yeah. Well, Roseanne blocked me a long time ago because when Margaret Thatcher died, Roseanne put up something about how she was a fascist. And I just wrote her back and said, you wouldn't know a fascist if your next meatball hero depended on it. And she wrote me back and said, I don't eat meat, fascist. And I wrote her back and I said, well, box of donuts, stack of pancakes, whatever you like. And she blocked me. I don't get it. I mean, I was just having fun,
One of your great quotes, my Wikipedia entry does not have any quotes of mine, even though I've got some zingers. It has one of yours.
Oh, it does?
Oh, yeah. And it says, I know that people have feelings.
That's why I try to hurt them.
That's why I try to hurt them. Why you gotta be so mean, Nick? Why you gotta be so mean?
I don't know. It's the Andy Kaufman thing in me, I think. I really, part of it is just I'm playing a character in a way.
Well, that's the thing. When you troll, They're playing a character. Because, like, look at yourself. Is this who you wanted to grow up to be? From your perspective, some random asshole actor you've never heard of is saying mean things on Twitter, and this affects your life?
Yeah.
Why would you care? Fine, fuck him.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Who gives a damn?
Who gives a...
No,
Oh, the sheriff...
How dare you? We're going to write your employers and make sure that you never get another job in Hollywood again.
Hey, honey, come over here. Can you believe what the sheriff from The Fugitive is saying on Twitter? Cancel dinner. What?
Right. Yeah. And the other favorite thing I get on Twitter is like, I've never heard of you. You know, why do you call yourself a big international film and television star? And I write him back and go, I can't help how ignorant and tasteless you are.
There is someone who tweeted something once, and I sent it to them, and they go, it is a very simple person who thinks his ignorance of a subject is a testimony on the quality of that subject.
Right. That's exactly it.
It's amazing. Oh, I've never heard. Well, do you know what a search engine is, motherfucker? I sure as hell haven't heard of you.
Right.
What? I mean, you can't win this contest.
Yeah, they're always going like, I've never heard of you. What have you ever done? I go, you go first, loser.
Yeah, or it's called IMDb. Right. And you're going to be there a while because it's first you got the movie credits, then you got the TV ones.
I tried Googling you. I didn't find anything. You'll probably find something if you Google me.
Have you heard of this thing, The Fugitive? I'm the sheriff. Right. And some other stuff since then.
Yeah.
I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Wix.com. Wix. If you go to Wix.com/welcome, you get 10% off any premium plan. One thing people say, oh, if you don't like it, build your own website. Ha ha ha. And that's supposed to be sarcasm. Well, all it took was one company, Wix, and now you can. It's the place to go to create professional websites. We made our own. If you go to letthatbeyourwelcome.com, you can see. With Wix, you can start from scratch, or they've got over 500 templates. It's the world's most innovative drag-and-drop website builder, so you can easily customize your site. You can add text, images, videos. Even boomers can use it. You can even use their ADI, artificial design intelligence, or defense intelligence if you don't know how to read. With Wix ADI, you can answer a few simple questions about who you are, what you do, and the ADI will create the website for you. If you go to Wix.com/welcome, once again, you get 10% off. It's easy to build. It's free. Free to build your website. Wix.com/welcome gets you 10% off any premium plan. All right, let's get back into it. So you're right of center, you're Republican, but among the Democrats running for president, who do you like?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go with Beto O'Rourke, and I say Beta intentionally. I know it's Beto, but it's Beta.
Not Beto, it's Robert.
It's Robert, but I say Beta, and I like him just because of his hand gestures. I just think that hand waving is going to be very, very instrumental in achieving sort of a peaceful world. I mean, he's going to put out a lot of fires by waving his arms around that much.
Gary Johnson, the Libertarian presidential candidate in 2016 and 2012, he was a lot like that. And the way I described it is it's like he's a scarecrow with birds in his gloves. So they're always flopping around independently of the body. So you're right of center, you're Republican, but among the Democrats running for president, who do you like?
Well, I'm really waiting for Ric Flair to declare. I think the 16-time world heavyweight champion Ric Flair would be one of the greatest presidents this country could ever have. I mean, one of his mottos is, if you want to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And if we elect Ric Flair as the man, someone's got to beat him, and no one can.
What did you think of his big speech on immigration last week?
Ric Flair's speech, I think some people said it was inarticulate because he kept screaming, woo, all the way through it. But I mean, to me, he was just really making a huge point about, we need to sound the alarm. That's why he kept saying, woo! He's like, we got to sound the alarm about the crisis that's happening in our border.
Were you surprised to learn that he was a Democrat?
No, I wasn't surprised because, Ric Flair has always cheated in the ring. He's always been a heel. Yeah. So, of course, he's a natural Democrat. It's like he doesn't pay any attention to the rules. If somebody beats him, he cries and he pays off referees. He pulls tights, anything he can do to win. And, it doesn't surprise me at all that he's a Democrat.
It's going to be amazing to see him in the debates.
It really is, especially when he starts low blowing his opponents. I can't wait to see him like take Cory Booker and just rack his nuts up really good.
Yeah.
Spartacus.
Yeah.
Right. See how Spartacus liked one of these right in the nuts.
What was your first role? What was like your breakthrough?
Well, Fried Green Tomatoes was really. I mean, let's see. Days of Thunder was actually my very first thing.
How tall is Tom Cruise in real life?
He's about 5'8".
Okay, so he's not like 5. Okay.
Yeah. But that was my very first thing, and then because of that, I got to read for Fried Green Tomatoes, and they read me for a smaller part, and the director, John Avnet, thought I looked mean and stupid, so he read me for the bad guy. And getting that part is kind of what put me on the map enough to have a career. So
Days of Thunder. So I used to do ghostwriting. I co-author books with celebrities. And when you get that name, you call your friends like, oh my God, you don't believe who I am. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. I mean, my God. And Days of Thunder was a huge movie.
But for me, Robert Duvall. I mean, I was in a scene with Robert Duvall. That was, to me, that was it. That's an actor's actor. And he actually, I said one line to him, and he said one line back to me, and I was like, I've made it.
I'm in the biz. I'm so in the biz.
I've done it, yeah.
Did they sit you down? Because you're a nobody at that point, right? Did they sit you down and say, don't talk to Tom Cruise, all that? Is that a myth? No,
they didn't. No. It's pretty much a myth. I mean, I have been in certain productions where they did say, it's best not to look at so-and-so unless she looks at you. Or something like kind of thing. But even that was most of the time the production company being too careful.
Yeah.
It was not
protective.
It didn't even come from the actress. It was just sort of.
Oh, you don't know that. I mean, they have the clean hands thing.
Well, the way she behaved, it didn't seem like
got
it
it.
came
Okay,
from her. Yeah,
okay. Or maybe it could be like it's better safe than sorry. So like let's build the wall, but let's let everyone in because once you see that they're normal.
Yeah, and then they have something to go. Look, we told you not to do this or whatever. But never experienced that too much.
So did you call all your friends to be like, holy shit, I was in a scene with Robert Duvall today?
You bet.
Of course.
I bet.
I mean, you still must be thrilled.
Yeah, I am. And also Gene Hackman, who was my hero.
Oh, wow.
And I did Runaway Jury, and I got to act with Gene for about 2 weeks. And that was really no experience tops that.
Is it intimidating, acting with people who you idolize?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, even, with Hackman, it was sort of like what you don't expect about Gene Hackman is that he's really shy to the point of almost being introverted, that he really doesn't speak very much.
Oh, so it comes off as rude, I'm sure, to some people.
It might, but I mean, he's just really to himself. He's very focused. And it was like for the first 3 days, I couldn't bring myself to speak to him. Yeah. I didn't know how. And then finally, he started talking to me. It sort of broke the ice a little bit. And, he sat down with us all at lunch, all of us one day, and he sat down and told stories about living with Dustin Hoffman, and just was really great, personable. And, at the end of the shoot, I got to go up to him and tell him how much he meant to me as a person, what an honor it was for me to act with him, and he was very gracious. And so, it was that was a really wonderful experience.
Fried Green Tomatoes. When you're working on a movie that is an adaptation of such like a big book that means so much to so many people on an emotional level, did you read the book before?
Sure, yeah.
How did that kind of inform your role?
Well, I mean, I took a lot of background from the book. The movie, the role was not as big in the movie as it was in the book, but atmospherically, it helps a lot. Usually when I'm working on a character, and especially if it's based on a source material like that, you just sort of try to absorb that stuff, and then it just kind of comes out of you however it comes out. Because then you're just in the process of doing the action, of playing the character and letting it happen, and you just sort of I try to just put all that stuff inside myself and just let it come out as it does.
It's kind of like listening to a certain song will put you in a certain mood or frame of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also like, it's the difference between, learning a song and then just playing it. At a certain point, you just have to let go. You've learned as much about the song or about the character as you can, and now it's time to just play the song, let it go.
I need you to tell me, and if you have to lie, that's fine, that Kathy Bates is as awesome as I think she is.
Yes, she is. I've actually, in Fried Green Tomatoes, I did not work with her.
Okay.
I met her, but I didn't work with her.
Oh.
So I really have never worked with her.
Oh.
I've just talked to her at a party.
But I mean, I think she has a reputation of being just awesome.
Yeah. She's a very gracious, wonderful person, yeah.
Who, I mean, can you give me another example of someone who is, let's suppose, not so gracious?
You're going to get me in trouble here.
Well, you don't have to name names. Here's why I asked
How
this
do
question.
I tell you about them if I don't know?
Well, here's why, because actors have to wear their hearts on their sleeve. You have to be very in touch with your emotions, right?
Right.
And there's also so much pressure because it's such a weird industry and it changes so much. And maybe you were great from age 10 to 14 and now you're garbage, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so that's got to fuck with people's
And
heads.
I was great from like 30 to 58. And now I'm just garbage.
Your cigars. I never heard of you.
I'm just like, who's that old guy?
So it's going to mess with people's heads, and also putting on different acting as other people as opposed to yourself. So people act out, whenever we're under pressure, but you're acting out in front of crews, so it's going to be acting out in original, funny ways. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm asking. Like, you don't have to say the name, but I'm sure you've seen people who've lost it, and it's like, this is hilarious. Because of the creativity and how they've lost it.
Yes, this happened not that long ago. Well, it did happen from time to time on Justified.
Okay.
I won't name names, but there were some days that were a bit longer than they should have been because of some people wanting their lines to be different or their characters to do different things than the writers wanted them to do. Not me.
Yeah,
but
never me.
Not me. But yeah, it has come up from time to time. I've never really experienced like an absolute fit on stage. I mean, I did a show a long time ago where there was a lot of tension between the lead actor and the lead actress.
Okay.
And they wouldn't speak to each other.
Oh.
And the actress at one point, suddenly in year 3 of the series, she said that she was allergic to any sort of scent. So nobody could wear deodorant or anything on set, no cologne or anything like that. And so the lead actor would just start dousing himself every day. We would go to the set and he would smell like a French whorehouse, We would all be like, holy shit, man, I'm allergic to it now.
Your eyes are watering from the alcohol.
Yeah, so that was like an interesting dynamic. The writers ended up sort of having to write scenes that they weren't in together. Because they hated each other so much.
Oh, my God. That is so funny.
So, yeah, that was pretty crazy. And, of course, that was the last year of the series, and then it ended.
Yeah, I guess it's for the best, huh?
Yeah. But, no, I think I have a calming effect on people. That's why I've never experienced anybody having a fit in a scene that I was in,
What do you think? Have you always been this kind of centered, relaxed kind of person? Easygoing or no?
My wife would say no.
Oh.
But
what do you like in an argument?
I'm a little bit irrational.
Oh.
I sort of say crazy things and then feel sorry about them later. I'm that kind of guy.
I'm the opposite.
Although I'm a little bit better now. I've gotten older, and so now I know when not to fight.
Okay, yeah, pick your battles.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm not going to fight about that. Let's just do what you say.
Well, I mean, this is a stupid question, right? Because you've had such a long career with so many credits to your name. If you could go back in time to when you're 30, you're trying to start out. What big mistakes did you make starting out as an actor?
Wow.
Because I know I made a lot of big mistakes starting out as a writer.
They're countless. I spent 7 years in New York just sort of trying to do anything.
Yeah.
Trying to get off Broadway, way off Broadway, whatever. And I just was scratching and clawing for everything I could get. So anything I got was like a miracle.
Yeah, of course.
And even the smallest little bit. I remember I had a class in New York that was a casting director who would come and see all our monologues or whatever. It's one of those things you paid for, like a showcase. And this casting director said to me, you're going to work a lot when you're about 32 or 33, but, you're not going to work much till then. And I was like 27. I was like, that woman is insane. I can't wait that long.
Yeah.
But that's exactly how it worked
32, but put me in the ground. I mean, my God, that's ancient.
But that's exactly how it worked out. And so I don't know what I could have done differently that would have made a difference.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I just I went to New York just like everybody else and tried to figure out a way to have an acting career because that's all I wanted to do. And somehow it worked out. I don't really even know how.
I know what it's like to be young and struggling, and you don't know when the next gig is going to come, if it comes, right?
Yeah.
At what point did you feel comfortable actually spending the money and buying something extravagant? Because I remember, like, if I had to wait for the train instead of taking that cab, I waited that half hour because I didn't have that $20.
Right.
And it takes a while for you to be like, you know what? You want to go to this restaurant and drop $80? It's fine. I promise you that $80 won't be the difference between being homeless and being here. But when you have that mindset, when you're hungry, it's scary. And it takes a while to get out of that mindset.
Yeah. I guess when Fried Green Tomatoes,
Okay.
I had 6 weeks of work on Fried Green Tomatoes, which was like, wow, we can pay off the crummy car that we have.
Yeah.
No more payments. And, I probably after that, I don't think I never had to have another job other than acting after Fried Green Tomatoes. So,
But were you, after Fried Green Tomatoes, like, all right, I can relax. I've, quote unquote, made it. Maybe I'm not A-list, but I'm still, no. When did you relax?
It was still scratching and clawing. Probably Justified. Probably not until Justified, because I had done a bunch of series. Some longest lasted 3 years. Most of them lasted 2 years, 1 year, whatever. And I kept telling people, if I could just get one thing that would last for 5 or 6 years, I'd be set.
Yeah.
And then Justified came along, and, that's what I say on Twitter all the time. You'll never be this rich, loser.
It's also funny, the idea of going up to someone whose Twitter name is international television and film star and being like, who do you think you are? It's just like, how do you take this? You think this guy takes himself seriously? Are you insane? It's all in caps, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, they buy it. They're just like, oh, my. I can't believe. If you have to call yourself an international film and television star, then you aren't one.
That's the joke, Dick.
Right? I go, yes, I am one. Look at my IMDb page.
There you go. Call my agent, but don't call him because I don't care.
Yeah. And I tell him, hey, I just shot a movie in the Dominican Republic, and last year I worked in Toronto. Those are 2 different countries. International.
Oh, my God, that's amazing. Is your wife this fun, too? Or is she more reserved?
She's fun in a different way. She's much more sarcastic than I am.
Oh.
She's very cutting.
She's silent assassin.
She's the funniest person I've ever known. That's kind of why we got married. It's like we would crack each other up. But she is hilarious.
Oh, so she's got that delivery. You would know it looking at her, and then she's got those lines. And you're like, where's this coming from?
Oh, yeah. Here's an example. After I got Fried Green Tomatoes, I kept getting offers to play wife-beating husbands because that's, get typecast or whatever. And I said to my wife, I said, I don't know why they keep sending me these, things where I beat up women. And Leslie goes, well, you don't look like you could beat up a man. I go, okay, all right. I asked for that, I guess. Oh, my God. And then usually the punchline to the joke is like, and that's when I hit her.
I was just going to say, it really damaged my ring when I broke her jaw.
Right. But no, she's kept me in line for 33 years.
That is amazing.
Yeah. She's much funnier than I am.
But I mean, to have had a career, you were. I mean, the thing that's clear about you is that you're blessed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who have it good don't realize how good they have it, especially in this country, and it's very unfortunate. It's like, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You are making yourself miserable, and you have it so good.
Right. I think that, and it seems to be child stars, people that attain a certain success when they're young, like Alyssa Milano. It's sort of like, you don't appreciate that. You don't know how rare that air is that you're breathing, and how lucky you are to be there.
You don't think she's playing a role in a sense? Alyssa Milano? I don't mean that she doesn't believe it, but she clearly has been put forth in the press as this entity who's filling a certain role for them. My friend made this point. He's like, why is it that Alyssa Milano is the voice of Me Too and not Rose McGowan? Rose McGowan's the one who broke this open, because Rose McGowan's a little bit of a loon. You don't know. She's a loose cannon.
Right.
Alyssa Milano knows the script. She knows what she has to say, and she does it every week.
It. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's it. I just don't buy her script. It's like, even to me, the script is ridiculous. If she's following a script, the script is totally silly.
Right. Have you ever worked I mean, is it true that a lot of actresses in Hollywood are total loons?
Well, yeah, like I say, I think that's overrated.
Okay.
I think fewer than you would think. I mean, most of the people that I've worked with are I'm friends with them, or they're very Jodie Foster,
I think she's gay.
Yeah, I think I heard that somewhere. I haven't, except for the lady that I worked with years ago who got allergic to perfumes. I mean, I haven't worked with. She's about the looniest one I worked with.
I recently brought up Jodie Foster in the context of you have all these horrible shootings and they're blaming Trump, and it's like, well, you're blaming Jodie Foster for getting Reagan shot. I mean, by your logic,
right?
The hell are you talking?
Right? Yeah. I remember being in a bar one time, and the bartender told me this story that Jodie Foster had come in, and the bartender is a very funny guy, and he went up to her and he said, "Hi, it's an honor to serve you, Miss Foster. I'm your biggest fan." Well, maybe not your biggest fan.
What was her?
She laughed and all right.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I can't imagine what that must be like.
Yeah, I'm sure it's horrible.
I mean, I'm sure she's a lefty, but no one. Oh my God, this is not a political. Remember when Reagan was getting operated on? They taking the bullet. He's dying.
I hope you're not a Democrat.
And he turns to the doctor and goes, "I hope you're all Republicans."
Yeah. Well, to have that sort of spotlight on you, and to be someone and young, and to some guy has some obsession with you. I mean, what does that really have to do with her? It doesn't have anything to do with her.
Fine, you have an obsession, send me presents.
Right.
Like, don't hurt somebody.
Yeah.
There was an Onion headline. I'm sure you're familiar with the Onion, and they had a book called Our Dumb Century. So it's like headlines throughout the 20th century. And the headline was Jodie Foster and John Hinckley to wed.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Nick, we are running out of time.
Okay.
So it's time for our last question.
Okay, great.
What was your favorite part of this interview?
I guess the favorite part of the interview was when I was talking about myself. And I don't remember exactly what part that was because it's all kind of a blur, but I really like that part where I got to talk about me because I'm very fond of myself.
You are welcome.